Buffalo had an aggressive offseason going after a ton of win-now moves while using the draft to bolster their defensive depth. Buffalo's offseason additions will rely on players who have shown big ceilings but come off big injuries. Joey Bosa was signed this offseason after being released by not the San Diego, but the Los Angeles Chargers. Bosa played in 14 games last season, which was his first really healthy season since 2021, where he had 10.5 sacks. Bosa has dealt with multiple injuries over the past 3 seasons, which has caused a significant drop in production. He hurt his calf in OTAs already, and the Bills are taking extreme caution with it. He'll be participating at training camp, but it'll be questionable whether or not he participates fully throughout training camp, which could really hinder his start to the season. The Bills also added Shaq Thompson, who has just played 6 games over the past 2 seasons, but 3 years ago was one of the best linebackers in the league from Carolina. Buffalo also added receiver help to make up for the losses of Amari Cooper and Mac Hollins, signing Joshua Palmer and Elijah Moore. Palmer got 3 years for $29 million, making him a valuable part of the weapons for the 2024 MVP, Josh Allen. The receiver room has now been another year without Stephon Diggs, and last year, Sanders, if you will pull up that graphic, there was production all across the board. Jack, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't and you don't remember it, who would you guess is the second leading receiver from a yard perspective for the Bills last season?
Last season, was it Keon Coleman?
It was. It was Keon Coleman, surprisingly, with only 29 receptions, which was 6th on the team in receptions. He had 556 yards and 4 touchdowns. Khalil Shakir was the weapon for Josh Allen throughout the season, the safety blanket. The slot receiver had 800-plus yards and 4 touchdowns on 76 receptions. The next closest on the team in receptions was Dalton Kincaid, and they had 9 players with 250 receiving yards or more last season, including 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, and 5 receivers. Truly remarkable what the team was able to do from a wins perspective. And this is the reason Josh won the MVP last season. Pull up Josh's numbers from last season. 3,700 yards, 101.4 passer rating, 28-7 touchdown interception ratio. And the big thing, he was also productive on the ground, 530 rushing yards with 12 touchdowns, many of which were not the tush-push like Jalen Hurts. They were 5-yard little goal line rushes. Josh Allen wins MVP, and yet the Bills get into the postseason. They win 2 playoff games. They're in the AFC Championship. They have the ball with the lead, and they can't get 10 yards on 1st and 10, and more importantly, they couldn't get a yard twice. Now, whether or not you think they got the first down, which I do think they got the first down in that game, Buffalo was unable to get it done against Kansas City again. Guys, what are you looking for from Josh Allen and the Bills this season?
It's kind of like a wait till the postseason, to be honest.
Yeah.
I expect to see continued regular season dominance from this group, especially since I think they're actually a better team than they are last year. I think they were, you mentioned, they were aggressive in the offseason, but they really have nothing left to prove as a unit in the regular season. We just need to see them prove they can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, prove they can even just reach the Super Bowl before they really, talk about winning it. So the goal is, Super Bowl or bust for them. So
Yeah, I really don't know what else I can see from them in the regular season. They've won the division every year since 2020, so that's the past 5 years. And so it's just like, it's almost like the regular season just doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but I think that I don't see them struggling in the AFC East. I don't think the Jets are going to be much of a threat. I don't think that the Dolphins are going to be a huge threat. I don't think I don't think any of those teams are going to be a big threat. They might drop 1 or 2 division games on the road, but I think they're going to win that East. They'll be in contention for the number 1 spot, and then it's just going to come down to what does the postseason look like. I don't know what they could do different, because they've impressed me every year, and every year you go into the postseason, you're like, well, did they make the changes necessary? It's kind of I'm trying to think. I feel like this is a sports movie where, it's an NBA reference. That's what I'm thinking about. The Toronto team that was built to beat LeBron. Is that the story, or is it the other way around?
I don't know. Yeah, they were like the mid 2010s. Toronto was really good, and every year they lost to LeBron.
And And so I feel like the Bills are like all they are thinking about is building a team to win the third weekend of the playoffs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Buffalo, from the regular season perspective, I agree with y'all. It doesn't necessarily matter what they do. They've had bad seasons and good seasons and still ended up with the same result. Twice in those 5 years that Sanders mentioned where they won the division, they finished 11-6, lost in the divisional round both of those years, and then the other years they had 13 wins or more and didn't make it past the AFC Championship game in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Regular season is not necessarily something to watch. Now, I do think there's critical games throughout the regular season for me. Games like against Baltimore and Kansas City and Cincinnati are huge from a home field advantage perspective. And that's part of the reason Buffalo has struggled in beating Kansas City is they haven't given themselves good chances at home. They've really only given themselves one. Now, they've done well in getting the home field advantage over Baltimore. That's a huge reason they've beaten Baltimore twice in the postseason in those 5 years. But they've got to win those kind of games, and that's what I would look for them this season is, do they win those games and set themselves up to be in the home field advantage?
Sure.
They have a schedule where they very easily could walk into a home seed and number one overall seed and give themselves the best chance to go all the way to the Super Bowl. And a big part for Buffalo, I think, is setting themselves up by having a good regular season to not have to face too many of the good quarterbacks, being able to get to the 1 seed, and then in the second round you play more than likely the team that comes out of the AFC South, Houston, Jacksonville, whoever that is, instead of having to play Lamar or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow in that second round. So the regular season, I think, actually holds importance for them. That would be kind of my pushback on that argument is they've got too many big games where they can give themselves a chance to be in a good spot come the postseason. And I do think, too, they're going to have some tests even in division this season with 2 new head coaches in Aaron Glenn and Mike Vrabel and a new head coach on the way, more than likely, with Mike McDaniels. I think Jets are still kind of the laughingstock of the division, and they probably will play that way. But Aaron Glenn is a culture setter, and there's a chance that this is a Jets team that is good in the next few seasons. But Mike Vrabel, more importantly, makes the Patriots formidable. A lot of people are high on New England this season, and if Buffalo can, in those 2 games, prove that they're still the top dog, I think it means a ton for this team, and then momentum going into the postseason.
Sure. I do so question, I guess, for you, JP. At what point, or do you think they're already at this point, do frustrations really boil over about the fact they can't get over the hump? Because we're talking about a franchise that does not really have storied success. No. So, I think a lot of the fans were really content and really happy just to have a player like Josh Allen and to be really good regular season teams and, make many runs into the playoffs. At what point does that shift?
Yeah, I think
and they start wondering if they need to fire their coach and stuff like that.
I think that's the biggest one, and that's one of my questions is Sean McDermott. What do they do with him come the end of the season if they didn't reach the Super Bowl? Josh Allen has led Buffalo to the playoffs 6 of his 7 years. The franchise before him had only made the postseason once this century. And so they hadn't really seen success since the Jim Kelly days where they made the Super Bowl 4 straight times. So I do think part of it is Buffalo is content with that success because they haven't seen it before. But I think you can't get too caught up in that, and you can't be content because you have a window and you have a Josh Allen where you should be playing at Super Bowls and you should be winning titles, more importantly. And I think a huge thing is going to be you just can't miss this window, whether or not the counterpart across from you in the AFC is Patrick Mahomes. It's really no different to the way we think about the AFC quarterbacks in the Tom Brady days, Phillip Rivers, for instance, or even Big Ben in his later years. There were questions on them even with the fact that they were playing in the same conference as Tom Brady. Like, it doesn't help that you have to play in the same conference as Patrick Mahomes, but ultimately you still got to go get it done because you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league and an MVP. You have no reason to not be playing in Super Bowls. And they've been in spots in each of the postseason games outside of really the first time they played Kansas City where they probably could have won and probably should have won those games. I think Sean McDermott is the biggest question on that. He would be the domino to fall.
That's where everyone looks first, so I would agree with that.
I will say he was the one coach to lead Buffalo to the postseason without Josh Allen this century. That holds a lot of weight, but there's been tons of questions of the things he's saying in-house and then game decisions in the postseason that are putting him under fire, but I think he has too much of a control of the locker room, and I think a big part of it is who are you going to bring in that's going to be able to work well with Josh and then not waste a year trying to rebuild the program of Josh Allen's prime. Like, I think that's a huge part of it. Ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily him, Sean McDermott, that's messed some of this stuff up. Josh has not been great in a few spots in the postseason. His players have also failed him. You think of the Buffalo home game against Kansas City where they missed the field goal that they should have made to, tie the game and potentially take that into overtime later. And then Josh, you could say last season failed them, but at the same time the refs failed them for not giving them the first down. They also had the chance where Dawson Knox, the ball is in his hands and he doesn't make the catch on the 3rd and 17 or 4th down and 17. And then in years prior to that, it was, what are you going to do when Mahomes goes down the field in 13 seconds?
Yeah.
That's part of it.
It's crazy that they've lost to the Chiefs twice in manners that have directly led to rule changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the overtime thing, then the NFL made it so that in the playoffs, overtime, both sides get the ball. So that was the direct rule change. And then this last year, now we're going to, I don't remember what it's called, but like the electronic placement of the ball.
Yeah.
The fancy stuff.
There's going to be a chip in the ball. It's going to be like,
which people have been asking for,
it's gonna be like
for
tennis.
years because not every other sport, but many sports have been using advanced technology to get more precise measurements and stuff like that. Tennis has done it. Baseball is starting to do it, but has been doing it on the telecast for years. So it's just really, really bad luck in a way. But how many years, I guess, of bad luck at what point does bad luck stop being bad luck? And it's just like, well, something's missing.
Well,
I don't think they're there yet.
It's also thinking like whether it's bad luck or a player makes a mistake, yada, 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 it always is going to come down back to the coach as like the first domino to fall, right?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily disagree that like it may not be his fault, but he is likely the first domino to fall. I think you're right there, JP.
Yeah, looking ahead to this season, a big question is going to be the receiving room again. Sanders, you want to pull that graphic up. Their receiving room this year is, again, another cast of characters, and the way that the fantasy football fans are drafting right now is saying that this is going to be another year of – you don't have it?
I don't have it.
Okay, that's
Keep
fine. Their receivers this year, it's going to be another cast of characters from how the fantasy players are drafting them so far. Khalil Shakir is a top 100 pick for a ton of people in fantasy football. But outside of that, you have guys like Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, and then you have Kincaid and Dawson Knox. None of those guys are inside the top 100 for picks. Many of them are above 250. And so this is going to, I think, again, be another group where it looks like that 2024 season from a stats perspective where you have a ton of guys that are getting numbers and putting up production. I'm interested to see a second-year step from Keon Coleman.
Fact.
I think Buffalo Bill fans are interested to see that, and much of the NFL is really looking forward to potentially seeing that. He was obviously not very productive. Most of his yards were on big plays.
He averaged over 20 yards of reception.
Exactly.
Like, it was insane.
And on 30 catches, 29 catches, 19 yards per reception, which was the highest on the team by far. It is good that he is that kind of weapon for Buffalo, but I think they would love for him to become more of a consistent threat, a guy like how Stephon Diggs was, where he could also catch the 7 yards and take it off to the end zone from there. It would help a ton because as a quarterback, like you want your receivers to make those kinds of plays because it makes it easier on you. When you have to go for chunk plays, you don't necessarily have to throw it 35 yards down the field. You can hit Tyreek Hill on a little 2-yard in route, and he takes it to the house. You need stuff like that, and hopefully they get that from Keon Coleman. Joshua Palmer is going to be interesting this season for them. He signed a 2-year contract, if I'm not mistaken, coming from the San Diego Chargers. He's still very young at 25 years of age, and he had some decently productive seasons for Los Angeles. There's a guy in our group chat that's really high on Joshua Palmer. McBride, he is really high on Joshua
I was about
Palmer.
to say, I didn't know.
That was my guess because I didn't know who else it would be, but I didn't actually know he was.
And, I've kind of had pushback with that on him, but Joshua Palmer is more than likely going to be the third receiver unless Elijah Moore can kind of take a step for them. But the way it's looking right now from a fantasy football draft perspective, they do not expect Elijah Moore to be that kind of weapon for them. Looking at the season itself, with the additions they had on defense with Joey Bosa and Shaq Thompson, this is, like Jack said, I agree, a more talented team than last year's. It was really kind of a statement that Josh Allen was able to lead this kind of team and this cast of characters. I mean, think if you put Justin Herbert on this team, how good would they have been last season? Be honest, how good would they have been?
Pretty good.
Yeah, probably.
They wouldn't have been as good.
Would they have made the playoffs?
Oh yeah,
That's crazy.
I also think they would have made the playoffs.
yeah.
Largely because of the division that they play in.
Fair. Yeah, this team is going to be very talented, and I think, like I said, they're going to be in a great spot to potentially go on a run and get the 1 seed very easily. We're all very high on them at 14-3 for each of us, and our Bills fan is there at 14-3 as well. I do want to say that an interesting question will be how they play on the road. They have not been a good road team the past 5 seasons. If you have that graphic, throw that on there. Okay. The Bills in the last 5 seasons were 26-15 on the road and 35-7 at home. And so if you're looking to pick losses for Buffalo, it's more than likely going to be road games for them this season. They don't necessarily play with the same firepower. And then also the home field advantage is a huge aspect for them throughout the season, especially as you come down the stretch. So looking at their schedule, guys, are there games that stand out to you? I know I've already mentioned the games with Baltimore and Kansas City and Cincinnati, but are there games that you're looking forward to this season for Buffalo?
I mean, I'll say it again. The Week 1 against Baltimore is very important for them. I think it's a place to make a kind of a statement, like you said. But it's also very exciting that we get that matchup Week 1 to kick off the season on Sunday Night Football. So that's kind of the big. I mean, that automatically stands out to me in terms of how I have them. I have them losing to the Falcons, so I'm kind of circling that game as a hope I'm right game, pray I'm right game. That's a Michael Penix I'm here game.
We'll see.
So
I will be in the building for that game, so I'm very excited for that game as well.
But yeah, that opening game against Baltimore is huge. I mean, Kansas City is always going to be a big game for them. So
It's very lucky they get both those teams at home. And then I feel like after that Kansas City game, the back half of the schedule, I do have them losing twice in the back half of the schedule, even though it isn't, I feel like, way easier than the front. But mainly,
I just don't feel like it's that hard of a
it's
schedule.
not that hard
to
of
be
a
honest.
schedule. It's
like
the 2 hardest teams are in the front half. Baltimore Week 1, Kansas City Week 9.
we get to play Philly Week 17. I will say.
Oh, never mind. I take it back. I missed them. I don't know how to see that down there.
It feels pretty balanced. You play Baltimore Week 1,
Yeah.
Kansas City Week 9, Philly Week 17.
Yeah.
Um,
Never mind.
So
Cincinnati sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
New
Yeah.
Orleans, sprinkled
Houston.
New Orleans sprinkled in there.
I'll say I think they have a good chance to really go on to get 6-0 through the bye is very, very manageable.
Oh yeah.
Now, that will be tough because 4 of those 6 games they're playing on prime time, and through the late half of the season, they don't play any of those games on prime time besides 1. And so it's going to be a grind through those first 6 weeks, and it's a really well-timed bye for Buffalo. Week 1, they play on Sunday Night Football. 3, they'll be on Thursday Night Football. 5, they're on Sunday night, and then they're back on Monday night, then they're in a bye. If they get past Baltimore, I think this is a team that could really rattle off a ton of wins. I have them starting the season 10-0, getting past Baltimore, beating Kansas City in the regular season like they always do. and then getting to week 12 where they'll play at Houston on Thursday Night Football, and that's where I have them losing their first game. But those first 6 weeks, you're going to see a ton of Buffalo and a ton of Josh Allen, and that's exciting to see. They're a team. Who doesn't want to watch Josh Allen? He plays excellent football for the most part. And it's crazy looking back on Josh Allen's career. Like, you think of, like, his first playoff game against the Texans where he tried to throw the ball backwards and turned it over, and it was just really a nightmare, and they choked against Houston and Deshaun Watson. And now to get all the way to this far where he's coming off an MVP, yes, they had the brutal loss to Kansas City, but he married Haley Steinfeld. Not Harry Styles, but Haley Steinfeld.
Dude, that would be crazy news.
This offseason. And
breaking news, Josh Allen marries Harry Styles.
Yes. So Josh Allen, you would think, is very motivated for this season, and I think he's going to play that way.
Or is he no longer motivated?
I think he's motivated.
I think so, too.
I think he's got a good chance to win the MVP again this year. I don't think I would bet on him, though. But I think he is in a great spot to potentially win another MVP this year. And we're excited to see him. We all got him at 14-3 as a group that puts them at 16-1.
Yeah. I haven't looked at y'all's Patriots predictions, but we all have them losing to the Patriots. So I'll be interested to see.
We all have we are the most unified on this division. We are the most, like, I'm not going to say groupthink because, I mean, we all make our predictions separately. But yeah, we're the most on the same page with this division as any other division so far.
Okay.
But yeah, you are correct. The lone loss is week 15 at New England.